Rick, a young man, cares for his sick mother, ensuring she eats and takes her medication. One day he finds her gripping a gun, murmuring Bible verses, her demeanor eerie and unsettling. But before he can react, she apologizes and pulls the trigger.
I'm sorry.
3 years later, Rick struggles to rebuild his life. He seeks work in construction only to find his old job taken. Desperate, he turns to his friend Jeremy, who gets him a spot despite his late arrival. While working, Rick injures himself and notices a woman in the garden, Antoinette. He politely asks for a first aid kit, but she refuses.
You got nothing inside I can use?
After explaining he just needs to clean the wound to keep working, she finally relents. As he treats himself, a servant whispers something to Antoinette and she quickly dismisses Rick. However, on his way out, he spots a room with cash placed on the table. Tempted by his poverty, he sneaks in and takes a single bill, but before he can leave, an old man, George Drayton, likely the mansion's owner, catches him.
Who are you?
Soon Antoinette arrives, furious, and fires him on the spot, vowing to ruin his chances of ever finding work again. Rick pleads, admitting his mistake, explaining he was robbed that morning and needed a fair home. To his shock, Mr. Drayton forgives him and hands over the entire stack of cash as an advance payment. Nothing screams suspicious deal like a rich old man casually handing over stacks of cash. No strings attached, right? That night, Rick moves in with Jeremy, who asks what he'd do if he had billions. Rick dreams of luxury, fancy dinners, and rekindling things with his ex, Tanya. Jeremy laughs, calling Rick a failure who never follows through. Hence, his current broke situation.
You gotta stop starting shit you can't finish.
The next day, Rick and Jeremy discuss their work site's purpose. But Antoinette interrupts, summoning Rick to Mr. Drayton. The old man reveals he regrets having no family to inherit his wealth. He then asks if Rick is religious. Rick admits he used to be. Drayton, once fatherless, now clings to religion in his final days. Then he makes a chilling offer.
Let us get down to it.
If Rick eats a meal made from his corpse, he'll inherit everything. Rick, horrified, assumes it's a joke, but Drayton insists. One meal, infinite wealth. Okay, so is this an extreme diet plan for the ultra-rich, or has this guy watched too many horror movies? Rick refuses anyway, but Drayton insists Rick is the right person for this burden.
This is a genuine offer.
That night, Rick returns to find Jeremy throwing a party. Tanya is there, but before they can talk, Jeremy comes and mocks Rick's failures.
What the f have you been up to?
Living the f***ing dream.
Later on, Tanya says she never expected Rick to stay after his mother's death. Suddenly, Jeremy causes a drunken scene. The outburst is brutal, and it's humiliating for Rick.
Fuck out of here, dude. Are you serious, you ungrateful piece of shit?
After that, Rick sits in his room devastated, staring at his gun, considering the worst. Instead, he puts it down and breaks down in tears. The next morning, he frantically cold calls for jobs. Nothing. Then, a knock at the door.
Yeah, I know.
The man hands Rick an envelope and informs him that his presence is requested at the mansion. Inside the envelope is an invitation, a suit of the attire. The man says he will be waiting for him outside in the car and gives a much more respectful attitude that invokes suspicion on Jeremy. Soon, Rick arrives at Mr. Drayton's mansion, where Antoinette tells him Mr. Drayton passed away earlier that day. She hands him a contract explaining that if Rick eats a meal prepared from Mr. Drayton's body, he will inherit all of his wealth.
You become heir to Drayton's fortune.
However, he must eat every last bite, and no one outside the estate can ever know, or he will lose everything. Rick struggles with the decision but agrees after a long pause. Soon, a meal is served with plates placed on Mr. Drayton's corpse. Shortly, Rick forces himself to eat dish after dish until the final bits are placed directly on Mr. Drayton's chest. With Antoinette reminding him he must finish everything, every last crumb, and somehow Rick does. When he's done, Antoinette gives him a card with Mr. Drayton's final words.
It is necessary to end the meal.
It states that Rick takes on all of Drayton's burdens and offers his own soul in return.
You carry, and I pawn my own soul.
Without thinking clearly, Rick signs the contract and leaves, but it's clear he is already starting to feel unwell. Soon after, Rick returns home and collapses into bed exhausted. But when he closes his eyes, he finds himself underwater, surrounded by terrifying demonic creatures. He screams in fear as the vision overwhelms him. Be careful what you wish for and who you give your allegiance to. The next morning, Rick wakes up and notices a man staring at him in the hallway of the house. When their eyes meet, the man runs away. Rick chases him, but is stopped by Antoinette, who acts like nothing strange is happening. She tells him that the mansion is now his and that he can fire or hire staff as he wishes. Rick declines, unsure of what to do with his new life. Antoinette gives him an unlimited credit card and encourages him to enjoy his wealth rather than worry about its consequences.
You could buy a lot of some things with that.
Later, Rick goes to Jeremy's apartment to collect his things. He tries to give Jeremy some money, but Jeremy refuses, saying he'll handle things on his own. Tanya sees Rick and asks if he won the lottery. Rick says it's something even better. She asks if he's really okay, and Rick insists he is.
This doesn't sound like you and Jeremy bullshit.
He then suggests they go out like they used to, but Tanya hesitates and says she can't, as Jeremy is waiting for her.
Jeremy's waiting on me.
Later, Rick visits a club and orders a rare whiskey. A man sitting nearby mocks him, suggesting Rick doesn't belong there and questioning how he dares to order whiskey. In response, Rick orders 2 bottles of the expensive whiskey, one for himself and one for the man.
I'll take 2 of those Macallans.
When Rick returns home, he starts drinking, but suddenly sees a woman appear in front of him. He touches his face and realizes his nose is bleeding. Before he can react, the woman disappears, then reappears and attacks him, screaming and blaming him for what happened to her.
Why did you do this?
Suddenly, Rick finds himself underwater again, struggling to breathe. He wakes up drenched and terrified, lying on the floor. Panicked, he immediately runs downstairs to find Antoinette and seek answers. He accuses Antoinette of drugging him and describes a soaking wet woman who attacked him and dragged him underwater. Antoinette stays calm and tells him to relax, but Rick demands answers.
What was that thing I had to read at the end of the meal?
He then asks about the statement he read after the meal. Without hesitation, Antoinette hands it to him. As Rick reads it again, everything begins to make sense, and a deep dread consumes him as he realizes the gravity of what he has done.
Is that even possible?
When Rick asks if what's happening to him is even possible, Antoinette explains that before Mr. Drayton died, he became obsessed with strange religious rituals to escape what he believed was his fate: hell.
What fate?
Hell?
Soon, Rick discovers a book about an old practice where families hired someone, usually a peasant, to eat a meal off a corpse, possibly a family member, transferring the dead person's sins to the eater. These people were called sin eaters. Rick realizes this is what he has become.
Am I a sin eater?
Antoinette confirms it and explains that immense wealth always comes at a cost. And this is the price Rick agreed to pay when eating off Drayton's dead body. Common sense kicks in, and Rick panics, saying he needs to fix this.
No, I gotta fix this.
Without waiting for a response, he rushes out of the house, ignoring Antoinette's pleas to calm down. Desperate for redemption, Rick goes to a church for confession. He admits he knows he has sinned, but doesn't even understand his sins.
You're seeking absolution.
Yeah.
The priest tells him he must first acknowledge his wrongs before he can be forgiven. Without that, absolution isn't possible. Frustrated, Rick returns home and questions the servants about Mr. Drayton. However, they all avoid him, refusing to speak.
You know anything about Drayton hurting somebody?
Honestly, at this point, Rick probably wishes he could fire all of them and hire people who actually answer his questions. Finally, he demands answers from Antoinette, threatening her job if she doesn't tell him everything. Antoinette calmly gives Rick documents: Mr. Drayton's coroner report, crime scene photos, police records, and a taped confession. Rick learns that Mr. Drayton was suspected of murdering his wife Susan, who had been having an affair. Mr. Drayton always claimed innocence, but Rick realizes the woman who attacked him was Susan's spirit. Shortly after, Rick goes back to the church and confesses, saying he killed Susan. The priest asks why he did it, but Rick, overwhelmed, says he doesn't know. He only regrets everything. As the priest prays, Susan's vengeful spirit reappears and tries to strangle Rick. But luckily, the priest's prayers drive her away and Rick is delivered. Good thing holy prayers work faster than Rick's decision-making skills. The next day, Tanya calls Rick worried about Jeremy. She says Jeremy has been acting paranoid and distant, and she asks Rick to talk to him before it's too late. That night, Rick notices a dark figure standing silently near his couch. Suddenly, a lamp crashes to the floor. Following a rope lying on the ground, Rick freezes in fear when he sees a man wearing a mask nearby. The masked man moves toward Rick, who stumbles upstairs in terror, searching for Antoinette. Instead, a ghostly child appears. Just as Rick panics, Antoinette walks in calmly, asking if he called for her. Rick tries to explain but finds himself speechless. Antoinette then reveals a shocking truth. Mr. Drayton wasn't born wealthy. He had also been a sin eater, which is how he first gained his fortune. Sin eaters inherit the sins of their clients, taking on all the crimes and evil deeds of the dead. Antoinette tells Rick that everything he is experiencing, ghosts, haunting visions, is the result of those sins. She warns him that this torment will never end.
He saw the same things you did.
Antoinette explains that over time, Mr. Drayton became consumed by the burden. He lived in constant fear, haunted by the same visions Rick now endures. Eventually, Mr. Drayton couldn't take it anymore and ended his own life, knowing his sins would be passed to Rick. Rick asks how he can get rid of the sins. Antoinette says the only way is to pass them on to someone else willing to take his place. If he doesn't, he will carry the sins until his death, and his suffering will continue even after that.
Likely be tortured for all eternity.
She advises him to enjoy his wealth while he can and offers him pills to help him cope. Rick refuses, saying she can't help him. He then goes back to the church again to find some peace, but the priest refuses to let him in. Even the priest is like, "Nope, not my problem, buddy."
Go home, kid.
Please, come on.
That night, Rick, unable to sleep, finally gives in and takes the pills. As he lies in bed, he sees a ghostly figure standing nearby. It disappears and reappears moments later, looming over him. Rick panics, falls out of bed, his mouth foaming. Just then, Antoinette enters, but Rick is no longer fully conscious. He hears his mother's voice and sees her standing before him.
I'm right here.
As Rick moves toward the figure of his mother, Dr. Kildare revives him. Later, Rick tells Antoinette he wants to try something new. Antoinette, though skeptical, agrees to help, admitting that even Mr. Drayton never considered this idea. She asks Rick if he's truly ready to let go of everything.
Are you sure you're willing to let all this go?
He is ready. However, he hesitates when she asks if he has someone in mind to pass the sins to. He then asks if Antoinette would take them instead. He suggests this could free her from her current life, giving her control for once. Antoinette hesitates, saying her contract might not allow it. Rick insists, saying he can't do this alone.
So that's it then?
Soon, Antoinette suggests Jeremy as the next sin eater, but Rick refuses, saying he can't do that to someone he's known his whole life. Antoinette explains she means someone desperate, capable of theft and violence. Suddenly, Rick sees a ghost behind her and grows more frantic, insisting Jeremy cannot be the one.
Trust me.
Just then, Jeremy calls, panicked, saying he's in trouble with dangerous people and needs money. Rick rushes to his house with cash. The place is a wreck, and Rick grabs his gun in case anything goes wrong. But soon he sees a ghost begging for help and fires in panic.
It's okay. Help.
However, when he looks again, he realizes he has shot Tanya. Shocked, he stares at her lifeless body. Shortly, Rick's driver comes in and manages to pull him away from the crime scene, taking him home. Antoinette reassures him everything will be handled.
This will all be taken care of.
Exhausted, Rick says he just wants it all to end, and Antoinette tells him he knows what he must do for peace. Rick decides to pass the curse to Jeremy and calls him over. Jeremy arrives, distraught, saying Tanya is dead. He blames himself, believing he could have saved her. Hopeless, Jeremy asks to work for Rick.
I can help you with whatever, anything.
Antoinette then reveals the truth. Rick wants Jeremy to become his sin eater. Jeremy must eat a meal from Rick's dead body to inherit his wealth. Shocked, Jeremy asks if Rick is dying. Antoinette explains Rick has chosen this life isn't for him and believes Jeremy can handle the burden. Shortly, Rick lies on a table as Dr. Kildare prepares the ritual. Antoinette reassures him it will work.
It's going to work.
Soon, Kildare administers a lethal injection, stopping Rick's heart. In another world, Rick wakes up and sees ghosts pleading for help and his mother in the distance. As he approaches, she transforms into Tanya. They apologize to each other before Tanya vanishes before his eyes. Shortly, the ghosts turn on Rick, but his mother's spirit drives them away. Then Rick gasps awake. Antoinette confirms Jeremy completed the ritual, recited the prayer, and has taken over Rick's life.
He's already begun giving orders.
Indeed, Rick realizes the ghosts are gone and confirms his freedom. Antoinette says Jeremy has embraced his new role and hopes Rick will do the same. 6 months later, Rick works as a construction worker far from his old life. Meanwhile, Antoinette writes Jeremy's name in a book of past sin eaters. However, at the mansion, Jeremy is haunted by the same ghosts that tormented Rick. Antoinette hears as his terrified screams echo through the halls, her eyes glowing eerily, suggesting even more sin eaters to come and go in this mansion. Rick is also at the construction site taking a lunch break in a park under a tree. But he isn't alone. Tanya's ghost sits silently beside him, but it's obvious that he hasn't repented for killing her and seems unbothered by her ghostly presence.